So, today, the thing that I want to talk about is the reluctant spouse. One of the things we hear pretty often is I think mediation or collaborative divorce sounds like a great fit, but I'm just not sure that I can get my spouse on board or they're never going to agree to this. So, if that's you, I want to let you know something. That's usually not the end of the conversation, it's sometimes where it begins. So, a reluctant spouse isn't necessarily against the approach. More often, they're just uncertain. They're worried that they'll lose something or simply overwhelmed that the marriage is ending. So, the first conversation can be important, and here's how to approach it. First of all, you want to invite, don't try to persuade them. So, when emotions are high, it's very tempting to convince your spouse that you're right, but nobody likes feeling sold to. So, try this instead. I've been learning about different ways people get divorced. I don't know if it's the right way for us, but would you be willing to learn about it together? Small wording can really help the shift as well. Instead of saying, I want to do collaborative divorce or I want to do mediation, try instead, I'd like for us to explore all of the options and see what makes sense before we decide. So that makes it seem more like a shared decision. Second of all, start with what you both want. So even couples who disagree or high conflict typically will agree on certain things, at least a few things, right? Whether it's protecting the kids, keeping things confidential and private. It could be saving time and saving money. In those cases, you want to start by focusing on those sort of shared goals first. Start there. Then the conversation becomes less about how we get divorced, more about what kind of divorce we both want. The third thing is, which is really important, right, is to hear their real concern, right? If your spouse is pushing back, don't correct them and say, you're wrong or I disagree. Instead, ask questions with curiosity, like, what concerns you about it? What have you heard? Sometimes the hesitation isn't so much about the process, it's really a fear of losing their voice or their rights or being at a disadvantage. Important to note here that in a collaborative divorce, both parties and both spouses have their own legal representation. But even in divorce, it's not about, sorry, even in mediation, it's not about giving up your voice because the mediators are neutral. The fourth thing, really important, is a consultation is not a commitment, right? A consultation is just an opportunity to learn and to explore. It doesn't mean that you're committing, you're not locking anything in. There is actually zero obligation. And finally, give it some time. Sometimes one spouse comes into this process having thought about this for months, sometimes even years, and the other spouse is just really trying to get their footing with all of this. This is brand new, and sometimes people need a little bit of room to sit with that. If you give people space, it often leads to a better conversation down the road. So you don't have to convince your spouse this is the right choice. You just have to invite them to learn more. And if you approach it that way, I think you'll get really far. So we are always here to help you find the right words and help you figure out if this is the right path for you and your family. So please reach out if we can provide more information.